All right, all right, all right. Welcome in. Polumbus Speaks here. We'll do a little post-draft coverage, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the Broncos draft. The Broncos selected 7 players. So Jahdae Barron. I always want to say Jahdae Brown. His name looks like it's Jahdae. I'm told that you pronounce it with a Z. I hope I'm not butchering it. Anyways, Barron's a cornerback out of Texas. They got really good value there. I'll tell to you about him, although I did not love the selection, even though I liked the player. That was their round 1 selection. In round 2, the Denver Broncos picked up running back RJ Harvey out of University of Central Florida. RJ Harvey is a little bowling ball, but he's a fast bowling ball, 4.4 speed. A guy that many people might say was overdrafted a little bit, but from what I've heard, Sean Payton dialed in on RJ Harvey a long time ago, loves him. They picked up in round 3, wide receiver Pat Bryant. Pat comes out of Illinois. He is a typical Sean Payton receiver, big body, possession wide receiver, not necessarily breakaway speed, but if you watch the film, he tends to play football a lot quicker than his 40 times says. After that, they ended up with 2 third-round picks, so Pat Bryant was a third-round selection. They also picked up edge rusher Sai'vion Jones out of LSU. In round 4, they picked up another edge, K. Robinson out of Alabama. And then round 6 and 7, the Denver Broncos got a little bit unconventional in their approach. They selected a punter in the 6th round, Jeremy Crawshaw. He's an Australian. He's going to be a fun interview. He'll always be fun to listen to. But they did select a punter in the 6th round. We'll talk about that. In the 7th round, the Denver Broncos selected tight end Caleb Lohner out of Utah. Caleb is a converted basketball player, went to college to play basketball, and ended up playing 1 year of football, only has a handful of catches in his entire career. But the Broncos are taking a flyer on him in the 7th round and saying we could turn you into a football player. So I've got thoughts on this draft. It's a big trust the organization draft, meaning if you trust this team, if you trust Sean Payton, you trust George Payton, that they're good at their evaluations, well, you can make sense out of it. If you don't trust the organization, well, you could say, why the hell did they draft a corner in the 1st round when they didn't need a corner? You could say RJ Harvey seems like he was a little bit overdrafted. You could say Pat Bryant seems like he was a little bit overdrafted. So I've got a pretty strong opinion on the 1st rounder that you guys may or may not like. And then with everybody else, I'm doing my best to trust the organization. And I think they've earned that right. Before we get going, though, I do need to take a second, as always, to thank the title sponsor of Safeway, of Mount Polumbus Speaks, which is Safeway. Man, I cannot speak tonight. I speak into a microphone for a living. You'd think I'd be better at this. Safeway is incredible, and I'm so grateful to them. Grateful to you guys who watch Mount Polumbus Speaks, because I wouldn't have Safeway without you guys. Safeway has got an incredible app that if you don't have on your phone, I'm telling you, you're missing out. You got to go download the Safeway app today. Skip all the other delivery service apps. Order directly on the Safeway app. You're going to save a boatload of time, and you're going to save a boatload of money. You're going to get points that you get to redeem for money. Everybody likes money. And they've got incredible food over at Safeway. They got fresh fruit that is cut in store every single day. And on that app, what I love about it is they save my previous orders, which means I go in about once a week. I've got my old order. I add 4 or 5 items. It takes me 3.5 minutes. I hit done. Before I blink my eye, that food is sitting on my doorstep. And you order online, Safeway's going to handle the rest for you. So make sure you go download that Safeway app today. Safeway, fresh foods, local flavors. Okay. Where to start? We're going to start with the 1st round selection, obviously. Jahdae Barron. Phenomenal football player. Let's start with the football player, and then I'll tell you my opinion of the selection. Okay? This is a guy that, according to the Muggles, according to the media members, who get information directly from the Denver Broncos, they've been told that Barron was a top 10 prospect on the Denver Broncos board. I believe him. I do. I know Jeff Lakewald had Barron ranked very, very highly. I think he had him as a top 10 prospect on his big board. I know there were other teams out there that had Barron as a top 10 prospect. I'm not sure why he dropped all the way to number 20 if so many teams had him as a top 10 prospect. You may know Jahdae Barron because he's the dude that, I'm going to go ahead and say it, stole the Jim Thorpe Award from Travis Hunter. Now, I hate to say that about a dude that the Broncos just drafted because he's a hell of a football player and probably worthy of winning the Jim Thorpe any other year. But Travis Hunter was the best defensive back in football, and Barron was the second best. So Travis wins every award known to mankind, including the Heisman, but apparently they decided he had won enough awards, and they gave the Jim Thorpe to Barron. That's cool. I'm not bad about it. That's cool. He's worthy of it. He's a very versatile football player. So Barron's a dude, we heard the word joker tossed around left, right, and center on offense for the Broncos. They were looking for that joker, that tight end that could play running back, that running back that could play wide receiver, a very versatile offensive weapon. That's what Barron is on defense, okay? You've got a dude who's played safety. You got a dude that's played outside corner. You got a dude that can play slot. Very, very versatile Joker-type football player on the defensive side for the Broncos. He's really good. And when you draft him in the first round, my opinion is he's here to replace Riley Moss. Some people will tell you that he was drafted to just be the nickel corner on this team. And when in today's NFL, you are in your nickel defense more than you're in your base defense. So meaning you've got 3 corners on the field rather than 2 corners on the field. That's true. There's more snaps in nickel than there are in base. So whether he's drafted to play slot, whether he's drafted to play on the outside, he will play a huge percentage of the Denver Broncos snaps. I say he better be here to replace Riley Moss, and I don't say that as a shot at Riley Moss because I love Riley Moss. Riley Moss can ball. Riley Moss is probably capable of being a true number 1 corner on some teams in the NFL. The problem is you draft a dude in the first round, he should probably be your full-time starter, meaning he's in there on base packages and he's in there on nickel packages. Now, when you go to nickel, what you can do is you can got to do the Chris Harris thing where Chris was a starting corner, and then when you go to nickel, you put him inside on slot, and then you bump Riley Moss back outside. A lot of people are telling me Riley Moss's job is secure. His performance would tell me his job should be secure. Riley Moss balled out last year, and then he got hurt, and the Broncos secondary struggled. When Riley came back, he had 1 or 2 questionable games that he wasn't quite back to his old form. But in the big picture, you evaluate the season as a whole, Riley Moss couldn't have played much better football than he did last year. So when the Broncos selected Barron in the first round, I admit I didn't get it then, and I really don't get it now. You want to sell me on value? I got it. Okay. You want to sell me on best player available? I got it. Okay. You had him graded as a top 10 prospect. He fell all the way to number 20. He was the best player on the board. Okay, I got it. You got a really talented football player. Don't listen to anything I'm going to say tonight as a shot at the football player because I respect the hell out of the football player. Barron can flat out ball, and he's capable of being a starting corner on the Denver Broncos team. What I don't get is taking a luxury selection in the first round. So you hear the term BPA tossed out there all the time, right? Best player available. Best player available. And they make it sound so simple. When NFL teams are in the draft, you've got a board, you rank them 1 through 300, whatever, and you just start crossing names off. By the time you get to your selection, who's the best player available? Well, Barron was ranked as a top 10 prospect, so let's take that dude, right? And don't get me wrong, best player available is a very solid strategy that most teams do utilize rounds 3 through 7. rounds 1 and 2 9 out of 10 times. And it's not always the case because the Broncos just did it. But 9 out of 10 times in rounds 1 and 2, it's going to be best player available at a position of need. Right? So you got to take into account what are the needs on this football team. Well, the Broncos going into the draft, they needed a wide receiver. They needed a running back. Running back was by far the most glaring hole on this football team. They needed a tight end. They needed a defensive tackle. They did address all of those, including defensive tackle. One of the guys is listed as an edge rusher. He's going to play D-end in a 3-4 scheme. That's the same thing as a defensive tackle. So they really addressed all those needs at some point in the draft. It's just based off of where in the draft they got them and how impactful the players they're going to be. So I would have not been surprised by anything the Broncos did in the first round except for taking a corner. That surprised me. That surprised me big time because you had 4 positions that you needed: wide receiver, running back, tight end, defensive tackle. First and second round, 9 out of 10 teams, they're going to address a position of need with the best player available at a position of need. The Broncos went pure luxury. It's not always a bad thing, but if you're going pure luxury, then you better not have very many holes on your football team. You probably should be ready to compete for a championship if you're going pure luxury. Now, some people would argue corner was a necessity on this football team, and I would argue against that. I got it. Riley Moss goes down, and our secondary gets exposed. I got it. Jerry Jeudy toasted us at the end of the season. Okay, our starter got hurt, and we got exposed. So I get it if Judson says they also have Travis Theus coming in for minicamp. Very good running back. Okay, don't know much about him, but I'll look into him. Obviously, an undrafted free agent that they signed. I get it that you probably needed to add some depth at the corner position. Did you need to add a starter? No, you really didn't. It was pure luxury. So, okay, trust the organization. The organization's telling you their other holes are not as big as I might feel like they are. The organization's telling you we're okay. We are in a position right now to take a pure luxury pick in a corner. The Broncos already had one of the most elite secondaries in the NFL. They were really good last year, and they got better in the offseason with the addition of Talanoa Hufanga at the safety position. So you had Riley Moss, you had Pat Surtain, you had Jaquan McMillan, who you probably needed an upgrade from. You've got Talanoa and Brandon Jones. That's an elite secondary, boys and girls, before you drafted Barron. That was an elite secondary before you drafted Barron. The Denver Broncos had the second best pass win rate secondary in the NFL last year. Already. Pure luxury pick. So I'm not going to sit here and hate on the player. A fantastic football player. And he's going to help the Broncos. Your secondary is going to go from really, really good to even better. Cool. I'm not mad about it. But when they did pick Barron in the first round, what that did is it pigeonholed you a little bit in the second round. Because the biggest need on this football team was the running back position. I don't mind them not picking a running back in the first round. Omarion Hampton was on the board, as was Sai'vion Henderson. Broncos said, we don't value them at number 20. No beef. I don't, generally speaking, like drafting running backs in the first round ever. This year was a bit of a unicorn year in which you had Ashton Genty. I personally really liked Omarion Hampton. I thought he was probably worthy of a first-round selection. But the Broncos didn't do that. And because they went pure luxury in the first round, that pigeonholed them in the second round, meaning they had to draft the biggest need on the football team in the second round, which is the running back position. Of the players that were on the board in the first round that the Broncos could have selected that I really liked, Well, first off, I really liked Emeka Egbuka, but he got drafted one spot in front of the Broncos. So he was off the board. Who was on the board? Matthew Golden, the speedster out of Texas, blazing fast. Think Xavier Worthy type of speed. You had Luther Burden on the board, who I really, really liked. You had Matthew Golden. Did I just say Matthew Golden? I'm sorry about that. Okay, you had Luther Burden. You had Matthew Golden. You had Omarion Hampton. And you probably could have taken any of those picks. And they all would have made sense for the Broncos at the time because they were all positional needs. Now, the Broncos started moving back. And with every single pick, they just started moving back, and accumulating more picks. Their trade with the Carolina Panthers, good luck making sense out of that. They basically swapped their entire draft board with the Panthers. And then they kept trading, and then they moved back up a little bit, and they started selecting the likes of RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant. So let's talk about their next two selections. Love the player with the first selection, don't like the position of the first selection. I'm not beefing. I just probably would have preferred them select a position of need. Okay, RJ Harvey. When the second round got on the board, I was really hoping that some way, somehow, Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins would fall to the Broncos. I thought it was very unlikely that Travion would fall, but I was kind of crossing my fingers, hoping and praying that Judkins would fall within firing range of the Broncos. Both those guys went off the board really early in the second round. They were never an option for the Broncos. Omarion Hampton got selected in the first round. So the top four running backs, if you include Ashton Jeanty, who's obviously number one, the top four running backs were all off the board before the Broncos had an opportunity to make a selection. Now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous because you're pigeonholed already. You've got a glaring hole at the running back position, and the top four running backs are already off the board. Here's what I've been told. When the Broncos moved back, and again, trust the organization if you trust them. If you don't trust them, don't. I'm just telling you what I was told. When the Broncos moved back in the second round, they did that feeling like they could very safely say we're going to get RJ Harvey late in the second round because almost every team had him as a third or fourth round valuation. So they accumulate some value, they pick up some picks, and then they picked RJ Harvey. And I'll admit, when they picked him, I didn't know a whole lot about him. I'd studied a bunch of running backs. I didn't study a whole lot about RJ Harvey out of UCF. I love what I've seen. I do. He's blazing fast. He's a 4.4 40 guy, so he's got rocket speed. He's a short guy, but he's built. He's built like a house, man. He's got Saquon Barkley type of thighs. I don't know that he's an every down back, so that's where it gets confusing for me a little bit. A lot of beautiful film, explosive ability, home run ability. I love the football player. Is he a third down back? Is he big enough to be in pass protection? I don't know. I do know that when you draft a running back in the second round, he's your starter, especially in comparison to the investment you have in the other running backs on the team. So RJ Harvey's the starter, but I believe it's still going to be a running back by committee approach. So Jaleel McLaughlin might still get some carries if he makes the team. What's wrong with me? Why am I drawing a blank on our running back out of Notre Dame we drafted last year? Audric Estime. Sorry. Brain fart. Audric Estime is going to get plenty of carries. I would imagine, don't know what that means, Baja. Did I just get hacked? I would imagine RJ Harvey ends up with anywhere between 10 and 12 carries per game, and then you divvy up the rest between your other running backs. It's cool, man. You didn't necessarily get the workhorse that I thought that they needed, but I really do like RJ Harvey, and I think what Sean Payton's trying to do there, I think he's trying to recreate some Darren Sproles magic. Sean Payton had a lot of success with Darren Sproles, with a speedster out of the backfield, and I do feel like because they drafted him high, Sean's going to be invested in him. He's going to want to make it work. Judson says, I was getting nervous, but RJ Harvey was my favorite. They rarely threw the ball, and when they did, he was rarely in the backfield, so it was tough to tell about his pass blocking. Yeah, that's true about a lot of running backs coming out of college. That's true about a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys have never even been asked to pass block. They've just been student body right, student body left. So we'll see in terms of RJ Harvey's well-roundedness. Round 3, the Broncos pick up Pat Bryant. So in the second round, they selected a running back that most people identified as a third or fourth round evaluation in the second round. Broncos took him in the second. In the third round, they took wide receiver Pat Bryant, wide receiver out of Illinois, who, again, most people had valued as a fourth or fifth type of selection, fourth or fifth round type of selection. But I don't really care what most people's opinion are of these players. What I care about is the Denver Broncos' opinion of these players. And if the Broncos identified these dudes as dudes that could play ball, I don't care what the rest of the league thinks. You just got to trust the organization. So that's why I just keep going back to you got to keep trusting these guys. You got to trust the organization. If you trust these guys, if you trust Sean Payton, George Payton, you trust that they're good at evaluating football players, well, you can make sense out of all this. If you just want to go based off of draft evaluations, well, you're going to see the Broncos, quote-unquote, reached on a handful of football players. Pat Bryant does not have electric speed, unlike RJ Harvey. Pat Bryant's a 4'6", 40 guy. But he's a big body, great possession wide receiver, good physical player that I think is going to help out the Broncos in the running game. I don't get caught up too much on 40 speed. The Rams are really good at that. The Rams don't get hung up on 40 speed with their wide receivers. They turn on the film and they say, can the dude play football or not? I do think Pat Bryant can play football. Really excited about him. The rest of the draft, okay. Got edge rusher Sai'vion Jones out of LSU. Edge rusher K. Robinson out of Alabama. And of your 7 picks, you took 2 non-football players. And what I mean by that is you took a punter and you took a tight end that's really a basketball player. Judson says RJ played a lot in Wildcat. He started off as quarterback. He threw 2 passes, 1 touchdown, another TD throw in the Senior Bowl. Never saw him drop a throw to him. Okay, that's cool. I hope he's great in the passing game in terms of as a wide receiver because the Broncos could really use a receiving threat out of the backfield. But back to my point here of the rest of the draft. You know, in my opinion, you got 3 players that you should expect to contribute right away. And Barron, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant. Jones will contribute right away in the rotation as a defensive lineman. But of your 5 players, you drafted 2 non-football players, and that's where it gets a little bit interesting. Did you need to draft a punter? Probably not. Could you pick up a punter as an undrafted free agent, even if he's the second or third best punter in the draft, and more or less be okay? Yeah, probably. Am I going to freak out? Am I going to lose my mind because the Broncos drafted a punter? No, it's a 6th rounder. It's not the end of the world. But it feels a bit like a wasted pick to me. And then, you know, in the 7th round, again, 7th round selection, I'm not losing my mind. I'm fine. You want to take a flyer on a converted basketball player? Cool. I'll trust your evaluation. Caleb Lohner out of Utah I think he played 4 years of basketball and then just 1 year of football. He only had 4 or 5 catches in his career, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Okay. Matter of fact, he's only played 57 snaps of football in his entire career. But he is 6'7". He is 256, and we have seen plenty of converted basketball players that have had success in the NFL. Yeah, Judson just points out an interesting stat that I forgot. He's got 5 catches, but 4 of those are touchdowns, and the others are 2-point conversions. So he has scored every single time he's touched the football in his entire college career with only 57 total snaps. So Broncos drafted an intriguing red zone option that will probably be a practice squad player, and they just hope they can develop him into something over time. Cool. So where are we at on the big picture on this year's draft? Really hard to tell. I think grading drafts right after more or less is dumb. You really do need 3 or 4 years to give a proper evaluation on a draft. If you forced me to grade the Broncos right now, B minus, something like that, right? And the main reason for me it's a B minus is because I didn't like the selection in the first round, but I do love the football player. So if you want to be overly optimistic and be like, I love the football player, and the Broncos got incredible value at Barron at number 20 with a top 10, a dude that is in top 10 on their board, well, then you could probably bump that all the way up from B minus to B plus or A minus, right? Because of the value of what you got. I just don't know that this team is in luxury pick mode. You had some pretty big holes on this team that I probably would have preferred been addressed. I know you drafted a converted basketball player tight end, but you really didn't draft a tight end. Not one that's ever played football. So that was the one need on this football team that did not get addressed in a proper way. Oh, well, you did sign Evan Ingram in the offseason, and he'll get you through for a year or two. I did think the Broncos were going to draft a tight end in the first 3 rounds, though. They didn't get that done. Not the end of the world. Draft's not easy. You can't get everything perfect. The board falls the way that it falls. NFL.com gave the Broncos a B+ on their draft. They said day one they gave the Broncos an A. So they loved the value of Barron. They say he can play wherever he's needed in the secondary, and they're giving him an A for the value of the pick. Day two, they did not love the Broncos' selections of RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant. They gave him a C+. So those are the two picks that I told you most people would tell you were overdrafted. RJ Harvey, probably a 3rd or 4th round valuation. Pat Bryant, probably a 4th or 5th round valuation. You take RJ Harvey in the 2nd round, you take Pat Bryant in the 3rd. And then day 3 grade from NFL.com, they gave the Broncos a B. They weighed all that out. Overall, that ends up with a B+ on the draft. We'll wait and see, man. They got one stellar talent in Barron, and then they identified some guys that they really liked in RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant. So let's just trust the organization the best we can. Let's wait and see, and let's see if these dudes are the guys that the Denver Broncos are telling us that they are. I had a blast covering the draft. I didn't talk about Shedeur at all tonight. I know that's still a hot topic. I'll probably jump on tomorrow, even though it's old news by then. And I'll talk a little bit more about Shedeur. I got some inside information from some scouts and one really, really high up exec in the league about what they think happened to Shedeur Sanders. So make sure you tune in to Mount Polumbus Speaks tomorrow for that episode where I'll give you what I was told. Again, I want to thank Safeway, the title sponsor of Mount Polumbus Speaks. Make sure you download the Safeway app. And I want to shout out Ascend Barbershop in the Parker area. If you have not been to Ascend Barbershop, I'm telling you, you're missing out. It's a luxury barbershop experience. I've been going there for 6 or 7 years now. Alfred Castro is my man. They do take walk-ins, but you're better served if you make an appointment. So make sure you go online, check out Ascend Barbershop. Let them know that Tyler sent you on over. They will take great care of you. I promise you it will be the best haircut and beard trim of your life. If you're a beard guy like me, don't judge it off of this. I used to have a big beard. They trim it up. I'm starting to grow it back out, I think. So I'm in an awkward phase. But they always do a great job of taking care of my beard. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys watching. If you have not subscribed to Mount Polumbus Speaks on YouTube, hit that link in my bio. I know the majority of you guys watch on Twitter. Hit the link in my bio on Twitter. Go on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. Make sure you don't miss out on any of my content. And if you love me, you love Mount Polumbus Speaks, you want to help my channel grow, I'd really appreciate a like and a comment on my YouTube video. Comment after the video is done, and that does wonders for the algorithm. And just know that I'll come give you a pinch on the rear end if I ever see you if you do that for me. All right, appreciate you guys. Be back.